So as you can see today, we are going to be talking about the light-dependent reactions of photosynthesis. And in order to understand the light-dependent reactions of photosynthesis, we need to start with just a short conversation on light. There are two main things that we need to understand about light before we can move on to photosynthesis. And the first one is that light is a type of electromagnetic radiation. Electromagnetic radiation is a physical science word that refers to the electric and magnetic fields of light that are created as this kind of energy moves through the environment. These types of radiation travel as waves, and light is our most recognizable type. It's not the only type though. We also include things like X-rays and ultraviolet rays on one side of the light spectrum. So if this is our visible spectrum here, from red to violet, then we have extraviolet or ultraviolet X-rays and gamma rays over here. And then on the other side of red, in our lower frequency waves, we see things like infrared and microwaves and radio and TV waves and other kinds of waves that we use for technological development. So the visible spectrum of light, what we can see of the waves moving around us, is really only this tiny little portion of this really giant scale. And so we see just a very little bit of the electromagnetic radiation that is available. But plants use specific wavelengths of light, specific wavelengths of electromagnetic radiation, or you could say specific wavelengths of energy in order to turn sunlight or this electromagnetic radiation energy into chemical energy, which you and I can use to power our bodies. And so photosynthesis is how they do that. What they use are wavelengths of the visible light spectrum. Once that light leaves the sun and travels to the earth, chlorophyll pigments inside of the thylakoid membrane, inside of the chloroplast, inside of the plant cell, these chlorophyll pigments absorb those wavelengths of light and they transfer that energy into energy to move an electron. And that's really the starting or the jumping off point for how photosynthesis starts turning light energy into chemical energy. It all starts with the excitement of a single electron in the reaction center of a chlorophyll A pigment. Chlorophyll A absorbs blue, violet, and red wavelengths of light, and chlorophyll B absorbs blue and orange wavelengths of light. And so these are the wavelengths of light that are used, absorbed, and utilized by the plant. Both of these pigments are present in chloroplasts in different amounts in different plants. So why would a chloroplast look green? Let's remember what we've been learning about light. So if this is white light, remember white light breaks down to form these different wavelengths of light. Chlorophyll A will absorb and use blue, violet, and red. Purple is violet. Blue, violet, and red are absorbed by chlorophyll A. Chlorophyll B will absorb blue and orange, leaving these sort of yellowish, greenish wavelengths of light that are unabsorbed and unused. So these wavelengths of light that are unabsorbed and unused, they get reflected. And that's why a plant looks green to you and to me when we look at it, because they reflect the green light, they don't use it. These are some pictures that explain how we see light. So plants absorb the red and the blue light to make food in photosynthesis. Plants don't need green, which is why plants look green. When plants are stressed or unhealthy, their chloroplasts start to die. And as a result, their chlorophyll A and chlorophyll B start to die. And so more blue and red pigments get reflected. And so as the more blue and red pigments get reflected, the plant starts to look more and more brown. And so that's why we start to see the yellowing and the browning of plants, or those beautiful changing of colors for plants. Those are really a signal that the leaf is no longer healthy, and the leaf itself is stopping to make chlorophyll. And because it's stopping to make chlorophyll, that must mean that the plant is no longer making sugar or doing photosynthesis, and probably the plant then is going to be dying, or at least the leaves will be dying shortly. Remember that what plants don't absorb is reflected. So we come back to this. What plants are not absorbing in their chlorophyll A or chlorophyll B is getting reflected, and that's why plants to us look or appear to be green. Inside of the plant, in the chlorophyll, in the reaction center, we're going to see an electron get excited from its ground state to its excited state by that wavelength of electromagnetic radiation, by that wavelength of light. So as sunlight comes into the plant, it is going to hit a fixed electron, and that electron is going to be catapulted up into an excited state. Picture like one of those strength competitions at a carnival where you take the sledgehammer and you hit that machine and the little ball goes up, or now it's just an LED light, but it goes up and you're trying to make it hit the top of the light. That's what we see. If the sledgehammer was the wavelength of light, then we would see that electron kind of running up, jumping up to an excited state, we call it. That's the chemical term for it. It goes from its ground state to its excited state. When the chloroplast is intact, this electron that goes up to the excited state is then going to slide slowly down into a new reaction center. Okay guys, so this is Mrs. Wally's crazy playground, okay? What we're seeing here is that a wavelength of sunlight is going to come in and it's going to hit, imagine like a little teeter-totter. And that is going to move the teeter-totter and launch my electron up to our excited state. And if it's intact, what we're going to see next is that this electron is then going to slide down the slide and come back gently to the ground state. This, in its essence, is what a photosystem is in photosynthesis. The electron jumps up to an excited state at the reaction center. So at the reaction center, the light moves the electron from the ground state to an excited state. And then the electron is going to travel back down to the ground state on something called the electron transport chain. Now this is a pretty crazy drawing, and I hope that you are able to draw it along with me, and I hope that you're able to keep this drawing with you as we continue to talk about what is happening in the process of photosynthesis. Because really, if you can keep your mind back here at Mrs. Wally's crazy playground, where our sunlight catapults the electron from its ground state up to an excited state, and then allows it to slowly move back down again to its ground state, this is the essence of that capture of sunlight energy into chemical energy. This is one part or one portion of what is happening in photosynthesis.